Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's guest. She is a sales strategist and she helps people have courageous sales conversations and create sales systems that support their business. Very excited to be rocking out today with Dr. Nadia Brown. Are you ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock. Let's do it.
Right on. So we always start off on a good note. Tell me a story of success in your business or your life that we can be inspired by.
Oh my gosh. I think one of my favorite success stories is of a client that when I started working with her, her revenue was hovering right around the 100K mark on the below side. And that was one of the reasons why she hired me. 2.5 years later, we were just shy of $500,000 in revenue. Like it was so much fun to work with her, but to also just watch the evolution of her business and not only how it impacted her business, but also her family. Like she took her entire family on a trip to France. So it was amazing.
That is very cool.
Yes.
How did this client find you?
Actually, she heard me speak at an event and she gave me her card and she was like, we should talk. And I'm so glad we did.
Yeah, isn't it fun when you are in a business where both of you are getting so much excitement from it, right?
Yes, I love that. I love it.
Right on. Well, it's not all sunshine and roses running a
It's not.
business. And so I like to transition right to the bad note, which is, something that just didn't go quite as planned. And I'm wondering, can you pick one that you can that you
I
can
know.
then you can share with us that we can maybe even avoid or even recover from if it happens to us?
Absolutely. I often say I'm the least likely person to lead a sales agency. And that is because when I first started my business, I hated sales. And so one of the things to avoid and not do is what Nadia did is I was doing everything else in my business to keep me busy, to make it look like things were going well. But because I wasn't focused on sales, I got to a point where we literally just ran out of money. So now you're having to have those conversations with people like, I really don't know when I'm going to be able to pay this, and that is never a good place to be. So get the support you need because it is game changing when you have that cash flow in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened? How did you end up in that situation in the first place? Like,
I just didn't like it. I didn't like sales. I didn't like having sales conversations. I kept telling myself that if I were just do more stuff and people found me, that they would just automatically want to buy from me. Like I would have a sales conversation, Tim, and not ask for the sale. I would just be like, well, they're here. So surely they want to work with me. So it was just obvious things that in that moment didn't seem obvious that I just wasn't doing. And with business, it ebbs and flows. And if you're not doing things to fill your pipeline, eventually it runs dry.
yeah. It's funny that you say that because sometimes it does work out where they actually ask, and you make that sale. But I don't know if that's the majority of the
That's
conversations
not the
that you have.
majority.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, that's something that probably maybe even new entrepreneurs can experience because at the beginning there's no pressure, you're just starting your business unless you quit your job or something like that. But if you're running a side hustle, then someone asks to buy something from you and you're like, oh great, this is awesome. That's how it's going to work all the time.
Right.
Right.
And that's not the case.
So what was the turnaround point? Like what did you do? How did you get out of that situation?
Oh my God. It took a lot of hard work. One, I had to get over the shame, the guilt, all of the emotional stuff, just get all the luck out of the way. Have some very adult boss-like conversations with people, which included, setting up payment arrangements. I got a temporary job. I was just like, I need a break from having to create all of this income under the duress, right? Because at this point we're under duress. It's a code 10 situation. And so and then I spent a couple of years just really focusing on sales. How do I get better at sales? What are the skills that I need to learn around sales? How do I shift my mindset around sales and to make it better? And that was when I launched the agency. I was like, a lot of women in particular struggle with that, and I wanted to help them to not have to go through what I went through.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. I don't think sales is one of those things that maybe it does come naturally, but I think it's something that gets programmed out of us,
Hmm.
for some reason. I think most people, when they think of sales, they think of the negative experiences that they've had where they've been convinced about something that they didn't want, right?
Hmm.
And so I
Hmm.
think that's what we start to think they're thinking of us when we're asking
Yes.
for the sale. Does that make
That is
sense?
pretty much it. Yeah. And I tell people a lot of times the reason why you hate sales is because you've been on the receiving end of a negative sales conversation and you don't want to be that person. But the truth is, you don't have to be.
No, because I imagine all these same people who were at the positive end of sitting in the mall and buying everything they could see.
Everything. Or especially, when you're calling your friends like, oh my gosh, there's a sale happening. Like we naturally do it when we don't put that pressure on ourselves that it has to be a sales conversation or done in a certain way. Like you have permission to really just be yourself in sales.
Yeah. Now, and but maybe let's dig into this a little bit more, because when people go to a mall or whatever it is, they're are they really being sold a lot of things? Like maybe they're just
Mm.
going through the aisles and they're just picking up what they want. And they go to so there's no sales conversation that happens there.
This is true. I think that, and even if we were to use the mall example when we look at our businesses, many of us are leveraging inbound marketing. Very few of us are actually making cold calls. And so people are essentially coming into your store because there's something there that they're interested in. There's a problem that they have, a desire, and they feel like you might be the solution. And the conversation is our opportunity to help them see whether or not we can help them. And if we can, then we get to extend that invitation for them to work with us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think maybe that's the main difference, is that in the example of the mall, you're right, they're walking into the mall, they're looking for what they want, they grab it, they go to the front. However, in your home business, when you work from home, there is no shelf. So
Right.
when they come to see you, maybe it's a matter of just shifting it around and going, okay, this person's here for a reason. They're here to buy
Mhm.
something. So let me just make it easy to get that in their shopping cart, right?
Right, absolutely. And some depending on what mall, what store you go to in the mall, you may have questions. And so there may be someone that comes up to you and they're like, how can I help you? Do you have questions about that? Especially like when we're buying tech or things like that, or a new car. Like sometimes we have questions. These days, maybe not. But you have that opportunity and you treat it the same way. Hello, Tim. How are you? Thank you for stopping by. Do you have any questions? How can I support you? It really, again, it takes off a lot of that pressure around having to be pushy or overly aggressive or whatever the negative connotations that come up for us when we think about sales.
Yeah, and I think that the world that we live in now is very different than it would have been 50 years ago. I think from what I understand about how things have changed, 50 years ago when you did go into a store, the sales clerk actually talked to you and sold you something,
This is
right? They
true.
were knowledgeable about what they were, they knew what was going on, even in the grocery store. I mean,
Yes.
you'd go in. Now, I wasn't buying things 50 years ago. I wasn't even alive 50 years ago, but apparently that's what it was.
Right.
However, over time, now it seems a lot of these companies will do pre-selling with, advertisement or whatever it is. So when you walk in, like, you're more informed about what it is that
Mhm.
you want when you walk into the store, because it's already been pre-sold to you. They've already convinced you that you want this thing. You just need to go pick it up, right?
Absolutely. And you have, obviously, like you mentioned, today in our day and age, we're much savvier buyers. So a lot of times we know. So a lot of times when I go to a store, my husband is like, "You are a salesperson's dream," because I've already done a lot of times the homework. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly how much it costs. I know exactly how I'm going to pay for it,
Mhm.
and it's an easier conversation. And so I think sometimes, even some of those older or old school sales techniques aren't relevant because your buyers are a lot more savvy, they're a lot more informed. And so you can just pick up and again help answer any outstanding questions they may have. And then let's move into working together if it's a good fit.
Yeah. And a lot of times, that what you just said, the good fit, that's the thing. Because nowadays there's so many different places and it's so easy to find your competition, that really the only reason why they're talking to you is probably because of you, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily because
Yep.
they want to buy that product. It's because they need to get the product. Doesn't matter who they buy it from. They want to find the person who they fit best with.
Yes, absolutely. And fit is so important and we can't overlook it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So now, when we get started in our home business, so I like to talk about the jam room, which is, your home office. It's your space, right?
Yes,
And how did you tackle that challenge of finding a space to work in?
we bought a whole new house. So we when I first started my business, we just had a spare bedroom. My husband and I shared because we both at that when we first moved in, we both worked outside our home. So it was kind of like you go hang out, check email, whatever. And then I went into business full time, and now it was like, okay, I'm still sharing this space. So when we decided to purchase a new home, that was on my list, Nadia's, and I was very clear. This is my office. I am not sharing. So if you want your own office, then we need to buy a home that has two offices. And so that was it. And then I hired someone to actually help design and look at the logistics so that it worked well for me, and get it organized, because that is not my strength when it comes to my office. And so just having that support. So when people look at my background and like, oh my gosh, there was an interior designer that helped make this happen. It was not
Oh.
Nadia.
So Nadia, why did you decide to even build a home business? Why did you just go get an office space?
That's a good question. I think at the time, it wasn't a conscious decision. In the beginning, it was really like financial, it made sense. I have, considered. So I toyed around with the idea of getting an office outside the home. But prior to the pandemic, I just traveled a lot. So it was just like, you know what? If I'm not already on my way to an airport or on a plane, I might as well just stay home and enjoy my home and just work from home and just not add a commute on top of everything else that I had going on.
And why was it important to have your own space? Why can't you just work in the kitchen?
Oh my gosh. One, I talk a lot. So I get paid to talk. So I'm either doing trainings or I'm having sales conversations. And those distractions just were not going to help. And especially when we found ourselves as parents. So we are in the process of adopting my niece. So she was 3 at the time. Can you imagine? Literally, I tried this, Tim. I kid you not. This was total lockdown time. I'm in the kitchen on my laptop in a meeting, and I have a child on my back and she's
Ah,
climbing over me like, hi. So no, this is why we need a space with a door and a lock.
yeah, yeah. So it's protect you from them and them from you.
Yes, everyone can live harmoniously together.
Awesome. So now what about cash flow? And I call it keeping the hat full. So, when we get into business, and you're making some good decisions right away by going, okay, well, I'm going to have a home office instead of buying an office space because I don't spend that much time there. And I want to make sure that, I make the best use of my house and all that stuff. So that's a good idea. But what other things, because I find that that's a big struggling point for a lot of entrepreneurs, is that they start to spend a bunch of money on stuff and then not necessarily see it coming back. But we also know that you're supposed to make investments into your business. So what's up with that?
Oh my gosh. I think this is probably one of the hardest decisions, especially in the beginning when you don't have a lot of cash and you're like, I need to do this. Like, which one do I choose? One, I think that's why sales systems are so important, because in addition to that decision, one of the challenges is doing a lot to get the leads, get in front of people, to get the conversations, to get the clients. And then we do the things to get the people. We have some sales conversations, we get the clients, we start working with the clients because we're excited about the work that we get to do. And then we stop doing the things to get the leads, to get the conversations. And then we wake up one day and we're like, crap, my hat is empty. And so I think that, having a system and leveraging automation as much as you possibly can, especially when you're still a solopreneur and you're wearing all the hats, is to keep things going, even if it's not like full tilt, but you're having some consistent conversations, you're having people in the pipeline so that you don't wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, the program is over. Only 2 people are renewing and I need like 10, to meet my monthly obligations or whatever that is. And so I think that's the other piece of it, is how do you leverage systems to support you, to keep the hat full.
Yeah, well, you're definitely speaking my language because I've definitely experienced that. And even now, it still kind of goes like this a bit,
It
right?
does.
Yep,
Yeah. It's not one of those things that you wake up and you're like, I've arrived. Like we all have to be very conscious of, am I doing the things to keep things rolling even while I'm delivering with the clients I currently have?
that's right. It's exactly it. Yeah, because like you say, I mean, it does take a little bit of time from, you know, going out there looking for the leads and then actually closing the sales and then do it. So by the time you can get to the next client, whereas they're paying you, that's quite a ways
Mm-hmm.
away. And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, but there's probably some money you need to spend in the meantime too, isn't there?
Right. Right. Because you may have to invest in ads, you may have to invest in different types of support on your, in your business to get things done. You may need a coach. Like there's so many things you may need. And then now you're sitting here like, crap, like, how am I going to make these decisions? And so that's the one thing I'm like, make sure that system is going and that you're always having those conversations so you can keep your pipeline full.
Now, just to I wonder, do you have sort of like a distinction between, you know, getting the leads and actually making the sales? Like, would you consider those two different things? Is there like marketing and sales, or is that one thing for you?
It's two. So
Okay.
I feel like with getting the leads, it's just letting people know you even exist and starting to get their attention where maybe they are liking your page or opting into your freebies and really starting to get in your list and become part of your world. I feel like they start to move more into the sales or in your pipeline once they've raised their hand and said, you know what, I'm interested in learning more. And that could be filling out an application or something to get on your calendar, coming to one of your paid events where you're making an offer or something like that. So I feel that the leads are those that are just kind of, nosing around, getting to know you. But the prospects are those that are like, you know what, I think I'm ready to take that next step. Let's have a conversation.
Okay. So then now, imagine and I'm not sure how big your team is, but imagine you are a solopreneur and you're wearing all the hats. And so maybe the reason why you're doing this is because you're only one person, and when you make a sale, you need to deliver that thing right away. So you can't be making more sales while you're still delivering thing, because you're still a few weeks out or even a few months out before you're able to actually make another sale. So how
Mhm.
do you solve that issue of this then?
There are a couple of different things you can do. One is you could create wait lists. I mean, if you're that in demand, depending on what it is that you offer, creating a wait list where people actually pay a deposit and then you're honest, like we can't start your project until whenever that date is. So especially people like interior designers, some of your graphic designers, some of your folks that do some of those bigger different projects, event planners, like those are really intensive projects and it takes time. And so I think in our sales conversations, we also have to be honest. Versus if you're a coach, maybe you can enroll people in an ongoing coaching program so you don't have the same limitations. But it really depends on how you structure your business. But I think the other piece is to be honest and let people know that this is the way, this is the process and this is how I work with people.
Okay. And how would you handle a wait list? Like, is there some sort of like discount or something? Like, what if they are not okay with that idea?
Then you get to decide, is there another way that I can work with them? One of the things but you'll be surprised, wait lists are like your velvet ropes. Like we at the club, you got the VIP section. And so people are like, man, you must be amazing that I get to wait to work with you. Obviously, not everyone will want to wait, but there's also an elevation that happens subconsciously with the wait list. And you're doing it because you're just like, dude, I can't handle all these people right now, but there is that subconscious piece to people like, I think I will wait. So you want to look at that. And the other piece is while they're waiting, is there something that you can have them doing? Is there information you can have them gathering? Things that they can be working on while they're waiting so that when you do start working together, you guys can hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to systems, right? Because there could be
Mm-hmm.
some sort of onboarding system that takes a couple weeks for someone
Yep.
to go through, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty typical in a lot of business. I mean, the ones that you mentioned, like with design and web development. That's what I do, actually, design and development. And yeah, there's a ton of information we need from people before we even get started.
Yep.
And that could be semi-automated, right?
Yep, absolutely. When I started working with my business coach, it was exactly that. She was just like, it was a lot of automation, pay the deposit, you sign the agreement. There were assessments we had to complete, things you want to know about my business. I mean, and they were intense. Like it took a while. But I was also, it was explained in the beginning, once you complete this, then you do this. So I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm waiting for my program to start. Like I knew that I needed to get her all this information before we could have our kickoff call, before we, were able to move forward. And so again, just it's part of your sales process, explaining it so people aren't they're clear. They know exactly what's going to happen and when.
I love that. I love that. So now next topic is about, learning from others on your path. And I'm wondering, like, I mean, did you already know all this stuff, or how did
Oh
you
my
find out?
gosh. No. I have invested in programs. I've worked with lots of different coaches. I've done training, mentors. I've even worked inside other businesses. So that was how I actually got good at sales. I was invited um, by a team, by a coach that was like, okay, you hate sales. This is obvious. They had done some work for me in my business, and they were like, we would love for you to come and, leverage your leadership expertise with us as we're growing our team. And I was like, absolutely. What I did not know was that at some point I would be involved in the sales process. To this day, I'm not quite sure how that happened. But as a part of that and being inside their business, I did start having sales conversations, and I actually got good at it. And I remember one of the owners calling me one day and he was like, Nadia, do you realize that you've closed like nearly six figures in the past 72 hours? And my answer was no, because I was just having conversations with people and they were interested and they were ready. I was like, okay, and how would you like to move forward? And so that started that process of me paying attention to it. But it also gave me the opportunity to do training and supporting other people within their business before I even decided to branch out on my own. And so yeah, I've learned from a lot of people over the years.
So how would you recommend that someone go out there and find the right person to learn from?
Ooh, that one, I would say get clear, because there are a lot of coaches out there. Good Lord, there's plenty. But get clear on what it is that you're wanting or needing to learn in that next season or for the next phase. So, like the sales phase, clearly, I was only focused on people that were teaching sales. This last time when I hired the coach that I'm working with presently, I was it clear I wanted to work with someone who could show me how to scale. So it's really clear that I have all this stuff and I have a small team and I know that there are things I'm doing right, but I want to grow and go higher. But how do I do that in a way that doesn't implode my business? Because scaling is also one of those things that can be really difficult when it comes to cash flow and making decisions. And so I wanted someone to be able to show me how to do that. So I would say get clear on what it is you're wanting to learn, and then find someone whose personality and values you jive with, because that's also in a coaching relationship. If you guys are out of sync, it just makes it really painful to
Yeah.
work with them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, because I think that's kind of where and I mean, it's okay to not really know what you need at first,
Hmm.
because that's normal as well. And maybe the first coach you're hiring is more of a clarity coach, somebody who's
Yes.
going to help you to figure out where you need to go. But then eventually, yeah, like you say, you're going to end up having some problem that just keeps on coming up. And then you realize that that's probably the area that you need.
You're like, I think I need to focus on this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I mean, everybody's different. So I mean, where you might have had an issue with sales in the beginning, somebody else might be great at sales, but they're
Hmm.
having a problem with maybe, you know, I don't know what it would be, accountability or
Operations, that's a big one.
operations,
Yeah.
bookkeeping. Oh,
Oh
next
my
thing you
gosh,
know,
yes.
yeah. But there's definitely help out there for just about anything you need, right?
Yes, definitely. Tons of coaches and mentors to help you get started.
So it's time for your guest solo. Tell me about what's exciting in your business.
Oh my goodness. I think one of the most exciting things that we've done or doing is working with our convert labs. When we first launched the agency, we only provided done for you sales support. But I'm a trainer teacher at heart. And so now we're hosting these labs, really working with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs on how to get their sales systems in place, how to have those courageous conversations, and really just set them up with the foundation necessary to move forward. And so really looking forward to hosting more of those. And we'll also be launching our new incubator next month. So that's going to be really awesome too.
Right on. So how do we find out more about this?
Well, you can head over to our website at thedoingitagency.com, where we will have all the information about all the things that we'll be doing, plus any new courses that we'll be hosting in the next year and in years to come.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today. This has been a lot of fun, Nadia.
Thank you, Tim, for having me. It's nice being here.
Awesome. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.